What happens when one of America's most outspoken political figures goes head-to-head with one of journalism's toughest interviewers, and neither is willing to back down? The cameras were rolling, the tension was real, and what began as a routine sit-down quickly turned into one of the most explosive on-air confrontations ever caught on film. Before we dive into exactly what went down, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on, because trust me, you will have an opinion by the end of this. The interview had been planned for weeks. Donald Trump had agreed to sit down with Katie Couric for what was billed as a straightforward discussion about his current policy views and future plans. The network heavily promoted it, and anticipation was high. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be a softball interview. Couric had built her career on asking the tough questions, the kind that made even seasoned politicians squirm. And Trump? He thrived on confrontation. The studio was perfectly set, 2 chairs facing each other at a slight angle, close enough for tension to build, yet positioned for the camera. The lighting was flawless, the crew ready. Trump arrived with his usual entourage, shaking hands, cracking jokes, and settling into his chair with the confidence of a man who'd been on camera his whole life. Moments later, Couric entered, calm, professional, and fully prepared, notes in hand. At first, everything seemed smooth. Couric opened with general questions about Trump's routine and his outlook on the country. Trump answered with his signature bravado, expansive, confident, and animated, proudly listing his accomplishments and vision for the future. Couric listened, nodding occasionally, taking notes. For a few minutes, it looked like a standard political interview. Then she shifted. Leaning forward slightly, her tone sharpened. "You've made a number of statements over the years that have been fact-checked and found to be inaccurate," she said. "How do you respond to critics who say you have a problem with the truth?" Trump's demeanor changed in an instant. The relaxed smile faded, his jaw tightened. "First of all, Katie, I don't have a problem with the truth," he shot back. "I have a problem with the fake news media constantly twisting everything I say. You talk about fact-checkers, but who checks the fact-checkers? These are people with agendas. They don't like me. They never did. They'll twist anything to make me look bad." Couric didn't flinch. "But these aren't opinion pieces," she countered. "We're talking about verifiable facts. Numbers, statistics, direct quotes. Are you saying every independent organization is conspiring to discredit you? I'm saying there's bias, Katie, massive bias. You've been in this business long enough to know how it works. The media picks a target and attacks relentlessly. They take things out of context, focus on minor details, and spin narratives that fit their agenda. That's what's happening here." Couric glanced at her notes, then met his gaze again. "Let's talk specifics. You claimed a particular economic policy produced results that economists say simply aren't true. When confronted with data, you doubled down. Why not just acknowledge the error and move on?" Trump leaned back, spreading his hands. "Because it's not an error. I have my own sources, smart people who understand how things really work. Just because some academic sitting in an ivory tower disagrees doesn't make me wrong. I've built an empire, created thousands of jobs, made deals they could only dream of. So forgive me if I don't bow down to their charts and graphs." Couric pressed again. "But this isn't about business deals. It's about factual accuracy in public discourse. Don't you have a responsibility to ensure what you say is true?" "I absolutely do," Trump replied. "What I don't accept is this idea that a small group of elites gets to decide what's true and what's not. The mainstream media thinks they own the truth. They don't. The American people are smart enough to see through the lies." Couric's tone turned sharper. "So you're positioning yourself as the alternative to established facts. That's a dangerous precedent." "No," Trump fired back. "I'm positioning myself as someone who tells it like it is. No filter, no political correctness. People are tired of polished politicians who say nothing. I speak plainly. I speak honestly. If that ruffles feathers, so be it." By now, the tension in the room was electric. Crew members who had been casually watching were on edge. This was no longer just an interview, it was a battle of wills. Couric's questions grew tougher. Trump's defenses grew stronger. What followed would turn into one of the most talked-about interviews in modern media history. She began bringing up some of Trump's most controversial statements, asking him to clarify or explain them. Each time he pushed back, sometimes answering directly, sometimes deflecting, but always insisting he was being unfairly targeted. You've called various media outlets the enemies of the people. That's strong language, Couric said. Do you stand by that? Trump didn't hesitate. When they lie, when they distort, when they push narratives meant to harm rather than inform, yes, I stand by it. Look, Katie, I'm not saying all media is bad. There are good journalists out there, people who try to be fair. But there's also a lot of garbage, a lot of deliberate misinformation. Someone needs to call it out. If that makes me unpopular with the media elite, I can live with that. But don't you see how attacking the press undermines democratic institutions? Couric countered. A free press is essential to democracy. A free press, yes, Trump replied. A dishonest press, no. There's a big difference. I support real journalism, people who investigate and report facts without bias. What I don't support is activism disguised as journalism. Too many reporters decide the story they want to tell before they even start investigating. Couric exhaled slowly, visibly recalibrating before moving on. Let's shift gears. Your communication style has often been described as divisive. Do you think you could accomplish more by being more conciliatory, by building bridges instead of walls, metaphorically speaking? Trump smiled, but it wasn't a warm one. You know what's really divisive, Katie? People who refuse to accept outcomes they don't like. People who spend years trying to obstruct and undermine instead of working together. I've reached out. I've tried to work across the aisle. But when you're dealing with people who've made it their mission to oppose everything you do, being conciliatory doesn't get you anywhere. Sometimes you have to fight. But fighting creates more division, doesn't it? Couric pressed. It entrenches people instead of bringing them together. Or, Trump shot back, it forces real issues into the open, where they can actually be dealt with. I'd rather have an honest fight about real disagreements than fake unity where nothing gets done. The American people didn't elect me to make everyone feel good. They elected me to get things done. And sometimes, that means confrontation. The interview carried on in that tone. Couric's questions sharp and probing, Trump's responses increasingly defensive and impassioned. What began as a controlled discussion was rapidly morphing into a televised showdown, a battle of wills unfolding in real time. Couric could sense the shift, but she didn't back off. If anything, Trump's rising irritation seemed to fuel her determination. She flipped to another page of her notes and looked up. You mentioned confrontation, she said. Let's talk foreign policy. Critics argue your approach has damaged relationships with longtime allies. How do you respond? Trump shifted in his seat, cutting the air with a dismissive wave. Our so-called allies have been taking advantage of us for decades, Katie, on defense, on trade, on everything. Nobody had the guts to say it because they were too worried about hurting feelings. I came in and said, this isn't fair, this isn't right, and we renegotiated. And guess what? It worked. We got better terms, saved taxpayers billions. Some people didn't like it, sure, but my job isn't to make foreign leaders happy. My job is to put America first. But diplomacy relies on trust and mutual respect, Couric pressed. If you burn those bridges, doesn't that make it harder to accomplish your goals long-term? You don't burn bridges by being honest, Trump said firmly. You burn them by lying, by being weak, by making promises you can't keep. I've been clear about what I want, what I expect, and what I'll do. That's not burning bridges. That's strong negotiation. And believe me, these world leaders respect strength. They don't respect people who roll over. Couric leaned in, her tone sharpening. But there's a difference between strength and aggression, isn't there? Between being firm and being antagonistic? What you call antagonistic, I call direct, Trump replied. I've spent my life in high-stakes negotiations with tough people. You don't walk in acting like you need them more than they need you. You set your terms. You make your position clear, and you don't back down. That's how you get results. Even if it alienates people? Even if it creates instability? Couric asked. Trump's eyes narrowed. You keep using those words, alienate, instability, aggressive. What you call instability, I call disruption of a broken system. The old way wasn't working, Katie, not for American workers, not for American businesses. I changed that. The tension between them was unmistakable now, thick enough to feel through the screen. What had started as an interview was now something much bigger, a clash of philosophies, personalities, and power. It wasn't working for American interests, Trump continued firmly. So yes, I disrupted it. And yes, some people who benefited from that old, broken system are upset about it. But that doesn't make it wrong. Couric paused, letting his words hang in the air before smoothly pivoting. Let's talk about your rhetoric toward specific groups. You've been accused of using language that emboldens extremists. Do you believe you bear any responsibility for how your words are interpreted or acted upon? Trump's expression hardened, his voice rising. Here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're trying to hold me responsible for how other people think or behave. I can't control what's in someone else's head, Katie. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. If someone twists that into something else, that's on them, not me. But words have power, Couric countered. Especially when they come from someone in a position of influence. Don't you think you should be more careful about the messages you send? I am careful, Trump said, his tone clipped. What I'm not is politically correct. I don't waste time worrying about whether every single word will offend someone, because these days someone's always offended. That's the world we live in. Everyone's looking for reasons to be outraged. I'm not playing that game. Couric's jaw tightened, her voice cool but cutting. This isn't about political correctness. It's about basic decency and the real-world impact of inflammatory rhetoric. Inflammatory to who? Trump shot back. To you? To the media? To people who were never going to support me anyway? The people who actually listen, who come to my rallies, who voted for me, they know exactly what I mean. They're not confused. It's only the media and the political establishment pretending not to understand. So you're saying the responsibility lies entirely with the listener, not the speaker. Couric pressed. I'm saying I'm not going to censor myself or water down my message because others want to twist it, Trump replied. I speak directly to millions of people without a filter, and they appreciate that. They're tired of politicians who test every word in a focus group and never say anything real. I'm honest. I'm authentic. That's why they listen. Couric flipped a page in her notes. You mentioned your rallies. There have been documented incidents of confrontation and even violence at some of these events. Do you feel any responsibility for the atmosphere created there? Trump didn't hesitate. First of all, the violence, when it happens, is usually started by protesters who show up just to disrupt. These are people who don't want to hear what I have to say. They try to silence my supporters who are good, patriotic Americans. They have every right to gather peacefully without being attacked. But there have also been cases, Couric countered, where your own supporters initiated confrontations or where you personally seemed to encourage aggression toward protesters. That's a complete mischaracterization, and you know it, Trump snapped. What I've said is that people have a right to defend themselves. That's not promoting violence, it's promoting self-respect. There's a big difference. Is there? Couric asked sharply. When you tell a crowd to rough someone up or promise to pay their legal fees if they hit a protester, how is that not encouraging violence? Trump pointed directly at her. You're taking that out of context, exactly like the media always does. Those were specific moments when protesters were being violent, attacking people. I said Americans have a right to defend themselves. But of course you cut out that part and make it sound like I was just telling people to start fights. That's dishonest journalism, Katie. Couric didn't flinch. I'm quoting your own words. These are direct statements. Read them all you want, Trump said sharply. But if you're not including the context, if you're not explaining what was actually happening, then yes, it's dishonest. You're crafting a false narrative. That's the problem. The tension in the studio was now unmistakable, thick, charged, electric. Every exchange seemed to turn up the heat another degree. Couric pressed on, her tone unshaken. Let's talk about accountability, she said. When things go wrong, when policies fail, or when mistakes are made, you often deflect blame. Why not take responsibility directly? Trump leaned forward, his response quick and defensive. That's not true. I take responsibility for my decisions. What I don't do is take responsibility for other people's failures or for disasters I inherited. I clean up messes I didn't create. That's what leadership looks like. When I took office, Katie, the country was riddled with problems, massive ones that had been ignored or mismanaged for years. I've been cleaning up those messes, fixing what others broke. And yes, sometimes that means pointing out who created the disaster in the first place. But even when your own policies fall short or face criticism, you tend to deflect, Couric countered. You blame the media, your political opponents, or what you call the deep state. At what point do you take full responsibility for the outcomes? I do. Every single day, Trump shot back. I'm constantly working to make things better, to deliver on my promises. But let's be honest, I'm not operating in a vacuum. There are powerful forces trying to undermine me at every turn. That's not an excuse. That's reality. Pointing that out isn't deflection, it's transparency. Couric's expression remained steady. You talk about forces working against you. Some say that sounds like a persecution complex, that you see yourself as a victim even though you're one of the most powerful people in the world. Trump leaned forward, his tone hardening. It's not about being a victim. It's about telling the truth. There are entrenched bureaucrats who hate change, who leak to the press, who actively sabotage policies they don't like. There are political opponents who'd rather see me fail than see the country succeed. These aren't conspiracy theories, Katie. These are facts. This is what I deal with every day. Or perhaps, Couric pressed, these are public servants who have legitimate concerns about your leadership, your temperament, your decisions. Have you considered that the resistance you face might be justified? No, because it's not, Trump said flatly. What's justified is demanding results, demanding accountability. If people can't set aside their biases and focus on what's best for the country, then they shouldn't be in those roles. The tension in the room thickened. The polite, measured tone that had marked the start of the interview was long gone. Couric set her notes aside. She didn't need them anymore. Let's talk about truth, she said evenly. You've been caught in provable falsehoods, statements verified as untrue, yet you continue to repeat them. How do you justify that? Trump's expression hardened. There you go again. Lies, falsehoods. What you call lies, I call differences of opinion. Just because the mainstream media says something is false doesn't make it false. They have their version. I have mine. The American people can decide who they believe. We're not talking about interpretations, Couric pressed. We're talking about verifiable facts, numbers, events, your own recorded statements. When those are proven false and you still repeat them, what would you call that? I'd call it standing by the truth as I know it, Trump replied. You act like these so-called fact-checkers are infallible. They're not. They have agendas, biases. They get things wrong all the time, sometimes intentionally. So your position, Couric said slowly, is that reality itself is subjective? That there are no objective truths, only competing narratives? My position, Trump said, leaning back, is that the establishment media no longer gets to be the gatekeeper of truth. You've abused that power for too long, deciding what's real, what's fake, who gets a voice, who gets silenced. That monopoly is over. People have access to other sources now. They can think for themselves. But many of those other sources, Couric countered, spread conspiracy theories and misinformation, content designed to manipulate, not inform. Doesn't that concern you? Trump waved a hand dismissively. And the mainstream media doesn't manipulate? Please. Every day you spin stories, twist headlines, omit facts that don't fit your narrative, all to make me look bad. You want to talk about misinformation. Let's start there. We're talking about you, Couric reminded him, about your own relationship with factual accuracy. Can you name one instance where you were wrong and admitted it? I've been wrong about people, about trusting the wrong ones, Trump said. I've said that many times, but you're not asking about that. You want me to admit I'm some kind of habitual liar, and that's just not true. Couric's tone softened slightly, but her words cut deep. You've surrounded yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. Doesn't that worry you? Doesn't that create an echo chamber? I surround myself with loyal people, people who share my goals and vision, Trump said. That's not an echo chamber. That's leadership. What you're suggesting is that I should fill my team with people who undermine me, who leak, who don't believe in the mission. That's not how you get things done. That's not how you run an effective organization, Trump said sharply. But what about dissenting voices? Couric countered. People who challenge your assumptions? Aren't those valuable? Don't they help you make better decisions? I get plenty of dissenting voices, Katie. Believe me, I hear criticism every single day, constantly, endlessly. What I don't need is critics inside my own team working against me. There's a difference between healthy debate and sabotage. Couric didn't back down. Let's talk about your finances. You've refused to release certain documents that every other person in your position has made public. What are you hiding? Trump's eyes flashed. I'm not hiding anything. This is such a tired attack. I've been more transparent than anyone. I've disclosed everything I'm legally required to. What you're really asking is why I won't hand my political enemies ammunition to use against me. And the answer is simple. Because I'm not stupid. Transparency isn't about ammunition, Couric pressed. It's about accountability. The American people have a right to know about potential conflicts of interest. The American people do know, Trump fired back. They knew I was a businessman. They knew I had major holdings. They knew everything, and they elected me anyway because they trusted me to fight for them. This obsession with my finances is just another desperate attempt to find something, anything, to attack me with. Or it's a legitimate concern, Couric said evenly. A concern about whether your personal interests influence your public decisions. Can you honestly say there's never been a conflict? I can honestly say every decision I make is for the good of the country, period. My personal interests don't factor in. I didn't need this job, Katie. I had a great life before all this. I did it because I love my country, because I saw it heading in the wrong direction. So this narrative that I'm enriching myself, it's offensive and completely false. Couric's tone sharpened. You say you love your country, but you've spoken more favorably about authoritarian leaders than democratic allies. You've praised dictators while criticizing democracies. How do you explain that? Trump's face reddened. That's such a dishonest framing. When I say something positive about a foreign leader, it's called diplomacy. I'm building relationships that benefit America. But the media twists it into something sinister. And when I call out allies who take advantage of us, suddenly I'm the bad guy. It's a no-win situation created by people like you who insist on painting everything I do in the worst possible light. But you've gone beyond diplomacy, Couric pressed. You've expressed admiration for the strength and control of authoritarian leaders. That's concerning to people who value democracy. What I admire, Trump said firmly, is effectiveness, the ability to get things done without being strangled by red tape and political correctness. That doesn't mean I want to be a dictator, no matter how badly you want to suggest it. It means I want results. But you twist those comments into this ridiculous narrative that I'm anti-democratic. Is it ridiculous? Couric shot back. You've questioned election results, attacked democratic institutions, suggested that rules and norms shouldn't apply to you. How is that not anti-democratic? Trump suddenly stood, his microphone jolting as he rose. The room froze. You know what, Katie? I've had enough of this. This isn't an interview, it's a hit job. You invited me here under the pretense of fairness, but all you've done is attack me, mischaracterize me, twist my words. I'm done. Couric stayed seated, her voice calm but firm. I'm asking you legitimate questions. Questions millions of Americans want answered. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe that's the real issue. Tough questions? Trump's voice rose. These aren't questions, they're accusations dressed up to look like journalism. You people in the media already decided what you think of me. You're not after truth. You're after validation for your own biases. Well, I don't have to sit here and be insulted. I've given you more than enough time, and all you've done is twist everything to fit your narrative. I'm quoting your own words. Couric replied evenly. If that feels like an attack, maybe you should reconsider the words you choose. Trump pointed at her, his voice sharp and angry. No, you're taking my words out of context, which is what you people always do. You cut sound bites, ignore explanations, strip away nuance, and then act shocked when I call you out. This, right here, is why people don't trust the media anymore, Katie. This is why your ratings are in the tank. Couric didn't flinch. Our ratings are fine, she said coolly, and attacking the messenger doesn't change the questions. Are you going to answer them? Or just keep deflecting? I've been answering your questions for the past hour, Trump snapped. You just don't like the answers. You want me to apologize, to admit I'm wrong, to bow to your narrative. That's not going to happen. I stand by my record. I stand by my decisions. And I won't sit here while you twist everything into something it's not. Then what are you going to do? Couric asked. Trump shouted. And with that, one of the most anticipated political interviews in modern television history turned into one of the most explosive walkouts ever broadcast. Two powerful figures. Two immovable worldviews. A collision over truth, accountability, and the media's role in democracy. Who do you think handled it better? And why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more political showdowns like this one.